Globespan is a Guyanese dialogue moving towards the realization of one nation in one Guyana. It's a platform that offers an all-inclusive discussion with the pros, the cons, the ones that have taken a side, and the ones that stand in the middle. Globespan believes agreeing and disagreeing are part of the nation building. Globespan believes that every Guyanese voice is part of the nation building. As we span the globe for voices from the diaspora and those living home, we stand on our commitment that we are all Guyanese working towards one nation in one Guyana.
This land is our land now.
As the world turns on its axis, bringing changes, we as Guyanese must adapt to those changes for a better Guyana for all.
Tonight, this is a special broadcast, an unusual timing for me, but we welcome all our listeners to Globespan Television 24/7, owned and operated by Mr. Noir Singh and our two technical directors, Mr. Devin Bissoon and Mr. Ryan Gobin. Globespan, as most of you know, has always been a fair and balanced network, and we invite all politicians from different political stripes or parties, civil organizations, and all various groups, trade unions, to come here and discuss issues relevant to Guyana's future development, etc., etc. The views expressed by our viewers tonight are solely theirs and not necessarily the staff nor management of Globespan Television. And for that, I would like to express our sincere thanks to GCOM for conducting a very, very smooth election. And the results, as we know, are in. GCOM is about to make that announcement tonight, the winning parties and so forth. And I would also like to express our views, as we know the results already, express our thanks on behalf of Globespan Television to Dr. Orphan Ali, President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, for winning a second term, and also to all the members of his party, and also to Mr. Azharuddin Mohammed from the WIN Party, We Invest in Nationhood Party, and also the APNU leader, Mr. Aubrey Norton, for the peaceful conducting of an election that we have seen run smoothly within the past 24, 48 hours. So thanks to all of them, and thanks to all Guyanese who participated in this election as well. Tonight, we'll be discussing topics relevant to the election results, and we have two of the most, what I called, well-versed guests tonight, Mr. Timothy Jonas and Dr. Bertaram. Mr. Jonas, I want to start with you first. Did you expect these results as they are now? With the PEP winning, they say at least 36, 34 seats, as a run-in, or when we invest in Nationhood Party, about 18 to 20 seats, and the APNU, about 8 to 10 seats, if that make up 65. What are your views? Did you expect this result, Mr. Jonas?
Well, I can tell you that if anyone asked me before this election, my answer had been, I don't know. This is one election I simply could not predict. Now, that is what you say in public, but I'll tell you this very honestly. I didn't expect WIN to do as well as they did. This is unprecedented in Guyana, and I think it is a token, it's an indication of so many things. First of all, of a professionally run campaign, and also of the indication that Guyanese are moving away from loyalty, because what Azharuddin Mohammed has accomplished there could not have been accomplished unless young voters, disillusioned voters, were moving away from where they felt at home and going to something new. So we are seeing something we've never seen before in Guyana. I think it's an extraordinary and potentially wonderful development. A lot of booby traps on the way, a lot of unknowns, a lot of variables. But this is not what I expected, but I am heartened by it. And I really like what I see.
The voter turnout, as I said, was very, very low. We expected to be between 60 to 65%. But at the early going last night, they said it was supposed to be higher than that, but we know now it's not going to be. And as Mr. Jonas just said, WIN is the first third party that was formed just 3 months ago and have garnered a place in the political history of Guyana. They've won 3 regions, 7, 8, and 10. They've taken region 10 from a stronghold of APNU, and region 8 and 7 also APNU regions. Normally APNU in region 7, 8, 10, and 4. But this time, APNU has not won a single region, and that's also a first for Guyana. In the history of Guyana, since APNU was formed, it's a first for Guyana. But I want our listeners to know that President Ali is the second president, well, the first wasn't president, to win region 4. The first was Chedi Jagan in 1955, when you had 2 PP political parties, one headed by Forbes Burnham and one headed by Chedi Jagan. And Jagan won Georgetown of itself. So President Ali is the second leader of the country to win region 4. And that also is historical. Dr. Betaram, I want to ask you this question. Azharuddin Mohammed did not campaign on anything much. His speeches were short. He mentioned some things that given pensioners so much, increasing this, increasing and so forth. What do you think was the momentum for him to win 3 regions and become the official opposition party? Dr. Betaram?
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Sorry about that. We were trying to figure that out, that same very question this morning. And I was talking to Ravi Dev in Guyana when we were trying to get some of the results. But I want to echo what Tim has said. None of us had expected this. As to why it happened, you're looking at a group, an organization that's been in existence for 4 months. I think to a certain extent, there's a little bit of sort of a populism here on the one hand. But I think the other issue here, the other side of the coin, is that people are, in a sense, fed up. In talking about the young people, because we know, and again, I'm not basing all of this on actual analysis, but from what we know, it seems like the older generation or some of the folks from that category did not come out. So it seems like a lot of young people, and I'm looking at the videos and so on, a lot of young people came out. And yes, I mean, you can imagine Chedi and Barnum, Chedi eating Salara and sipping on Mavi, and Barnum sitting across the table in his gabardine suit, and smoking a cigar. And he's asking Chedi, well, what happened here, comrade? And Chedi says, well, comrade, this is karma. The point I'm trying to make here is that there is a sort of a new movement here that's moving away from this sort of a race-based politics. Yes, the PPP can make the claim that in a sense that they have brought people together from different ethnic background, but so can Muhammad can also make the same claim, right? So the question as to why that happened, I think young people have gotten away from this tradition. I think they have seen the back and forth, what's going on. I mean, imagine in the 60s, the PPP was saying don't split the vote, but here you have in this election, it's the PNC, APNU, that is saying don't split the vote. So short answer to that is we're seeing some changes where the historical determination of how people vote have been shifting. And I think that's a good thing, right? And hopefully that continues. And yes, I will echo the same concern that we will have. Is the question is, how will all of this play out? right? Remember, you still have the sanction, and you have other issues that's going to play out. So that's something maybe we can discuss on the show.
We have Mr. Noir Singh here tonight as our host as well, and Mr. Noir Singh will jump in at any time if he wants to. So good night again, Mr. Noir Singh. And Mr. Jonas, I have a question for you, and I'll piggyback on what Dr. Betarams just said. Do you think the youth of
Dr.
Guyana is
Rose,
moving away? Yes,
Dr. Rose,
go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you, but we do have an additional guest on the program tonight, Mr. GHK. He's on the
Okay.
panel. I'm not sure that you notice he's on.
Mr. J.H. Lal, are you there?
Yes, sir. I am
Oh,
here.
good night. Good night. Nice to see you. First time I'm seeing you in person. Thank you.
Good evening.
Mr. Jonas, let me ask you this question. And Mr. J.H. Kalal, you can also answer it after Mr. Jonas. Mr. Jonas, as some have said, that, and Mr. Dr. Batram has said that too, that the Guyanese youths are moving away from the traditional concept of race-based politics in Guyana. Given what happened in this election, what are your views on that?
GHK, you want to jump in?
No, you go ahead. You were asked to talk first.
Okay.
I defer to the moderator. Thank you.
I think that realistically, when you look at the figures, at least the preliminary figures that have come out, the PPP voters have not changed very much. They have remained pretty static, pretty constant. Stronghold in 3, stronghold in 6. The success in Region 4 has not been so much a group of people crossing over to vote who used to vote APNU, but it's APNU people staying home, thus the low voter turnout. I think the large change that we've seen is in those same Afro communities, the same PNC traditional strongholds, where people are so disillusioned and fed up. And Region 10 is a perfect example. Look at Linden, that they are saying they have had enough. They're not inspired by Mr. Norton. They're not inspired by what APNU has done. And they have gone to win in huge numbers. The Amerindian community, similarly, regions 1, 7, 8, 9, you're seeing the same. And to me, it is the result of an extraordinarily clever, professional political campaign by WIN. Since probably last year, I had heard that they were doing surveys in the villages since last year about what the people's response would be to the philanthropic gestures having been made by the Mohammeds even then. So that's part of it. I think we got to look at the good and the danger. This is the good from my point of view. For the first time in Guyana, the two large parties have nothing to do with race. They are both led by Indo-Guyanese men who are Muslim. We are an example to the rest of the world of inclusivity, social inclusivity. I think that is such a wonderful thing. They should be singing Guyana's praises throughout the world. Race in the next election is not going to be the issue that it has always been in Guyana. And that has been demonstrated by the willingness of those people in Linden, the people in West Rumbelt, to support WIN and to ignore the old traditional rotten voices that we've been so accustomed to for the last 50 years in Guyana. Here's the danger. We are aware that the WIN folk historically were very close with the PPP. And you know, I've been unsuccessful so far, but you know I advocate for a minority government so that there is inclusivity. It would be an interesting development if in 6 months or a year, the public is informed that political maturity and good sense has prevailed so that these two individuals have decided for the good of Guyana to move forward together and to make fundamental changes in politics. because together they got 50 plus seats. They got 2/3 majority. They can change the constitution if they decide to shake hands and be friendly. So the possibilities are enormous. The potential is enormous. The dangers and pitfalls are also there to be observed. And you just can't predict the future with this outcome. This is something that has really left me taken aback and trying to count the variables. Can you imagine?
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just two things. Can you imagine that right now a new leader of the opposition will be replacing 3 members of GCOM? A new leader of the opposition will be discussing with President Ali the appointments of chancellors and chief justices. The old obstacles might be replaced with new obstacles, but the dynamic of the conversations will be different. Anything is possible.
Mr. Jones, let me ask you this as a lawyer. I should have asked the clerk of the assembly. Mr. Mohammed party has been elected as the main opposition party. Does he being the leader, does he have to be a member of parliament, or does he have to sit in parliament, or he can designate that position to someone else?
The leader of the list decides who sits in parliament. So I assume, I haven't seen the paperwork, but I assume he's the leader of the win list. And he could pick anybody, for any candidate from that list to sit in parliament.
Okay. I was asked that question today and I did not know the answer. I said he could put someone else in his place, but I wasn't sure. Mr. Lal, you want to answer the same question? Why is it a good thing that the youths are moving away from the traditional concept of race-based politics? Some say it's a good thing, others says no, but what's your opinion?
Well, first of all, good evening, everyone. I'm meeting you 2 gentlemen, Dr. Ramarak and yourself, for the first time. I'm pretty sure about that. Good evening, everyone. My pleasure. Now, I am hearing this talk in here based on the numbers, and the numbers don't lie, about this shift, this beautiful shift away from what has dogged us from the time of our independence, if not before, where we are split down the racial middle. And it has hurt us. It has hurt us terribly. I would love, and I think everybody here in this room, this electronic room, and listening, would love to know that we have turned the corner on that issue. And the youth of Guyana have led the way with this. My question here that I'm asking myself and I'm asking out aloud is, how deep is this? How deep is this shift? Or is this in response? I agree fully. I was asked this question before. Is this a sign of disgust and sick and tired with the established behemoths, the PPP and the PNC? And forgive me, I still call them the PNC because that's what I see them to be. A way to anything at all, meaning here is Mr. Win, Mr. Mohammed, and we know what he has hanging over his head. And it doesn't matter to the people. It doesn't matter to those who came out and surrounded him in the deep hinterlands of this country. In the center of our administrative capital, he goes and he draws a crowd. And I don't think that that's charisma. And I think it might be a little bit more than commercial and philanthropy. I think that people genuinely want to move away to something new. And in Azruddin Mohammed, they feel, with his baggage and all, that he has something to offer. And I'm going to introduce something else here that is different. And I wish that Miss Amanza Walton Desir, I hope I have that right, she started late also, but she's got some shadows hanging over her head institutionally, and you know what I mean by that, the party from which she came. But I think she's a winner in this election, and and the 2 of them, look at their ages. I don't think either of them are 40 years of age. They, in 5 years, those two can be the people that are very, very much in the thick of things. And imagine what they could do, how much they could mesmerize and inspire the youth vote. And we have a totally different competition now. Further to that, we're talking about 21, 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. Gentlemen, these people don't know about Barnum and Jagan. They're not me. I'm approaching 70. And I think, with due respect to you gentlemen, Mr. Jonas included, I see people who might be 70, very close to that also, although my math may be a little fuzzy. The fact is, they don't know and they don't care to know about Barnum and Jagan. Their Barnum and Jagan is Jagdeo and Ali and Norton. And in Norton, unfortunately, in Mr. Aubrey Norton, they felt that we ain't got what we're looking for here. Whether the PNC didn't put out, the PNC fight too much between themselves, they couldn't get a coalition together, all those things. If you can't get your house in order, how are you going to get the national house in order? And so that's what I think the youth say. They didn't have the time to analyze and sift through this. And so they came to this thing. Who is offering us, who's a bright new light on the horizon that we can hold on to, because we feel that there is something there for us individually, family, and as a group. And I think this is what is good. I would like to see this sustained. I would like to see this sustained beyond the warm and fuzzy time of elections and declarations and all of that business. And if that could be, then I agree with everybody in this room that we are onto something good, and we are onto something unprecedented in the annals of this country.
Thank you. Dr. Betaram, I want to ask you this question. For the first time in the history of Guyana's politics, a major party has been wiped off the landscape, meaning that APNU/PNC did not win a single region out of the 10 regions. Do you think that's a good thing for one of the major parties to be completely wiped off the scene? Or is something that we should not be taken lightly?
Well, I mean, we have a gap, but the gap is being filled by WIN, right? The whole problem here is that prior to this election, I think everybody would have agreed that you don't have a very credible opposition, right? And again, look what APNU had done in 2020. So that alone creates a problem going into this election, right? So that gap is going to be filled. But there's some other things that I think we need to look at here. I think before 2020, the question was about power sharing. We know that's in a sense thrown out in the wastebasket, especially if you talk about executive power sharing. So that was the talk, right? And I think with this election here, a lot of people have been pushing this whole notion of a minority government without really thinking through this, because a minority government would imply that you could have a repetition of what you had before with the no confidence vote, and then you throw everything in the wrench, and then you have to have a new election. Plus, a minority government, in a sense, is also a recipe for gridlock, right? They don't really work very well. So I want to put that out there. But I think the question that you asked before about, some things that are happening here. Yes, the young folks are coming out, but we also have the Amerindians. The Amerindians have traditionally, if you go back to the 1960s, they voted for the UF. But I think with this election here, and for them to come out and be participant in this election, the Amerindians are going to be, they're going to have a voice, a bigger voice than they've had before, right? And because they're becoming more politicized. And I think the fact that WIN was very popular among the Amerindians, that's something that they will continue to maintain, that support. Now, the other thing, we're talking about, yes, the positive thing, if these two parties if WIN and the PPP can work together, but we can't forget the fact that this person is sanctioned and the US is watching this. We don't know what the U.S. position would be. It could you may have things that are happening behind the scene, where the U.S. may be building a case. Again, I'm just thinking out loud, right? I hope Azurita enjoy his victory, but I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe the PPP would be working with the U.S. to have him extradited. We don't know. We don't have all of that information, but that sanction still exists. When Maduro is being sanctioned, he wasn't just sanctioned by the U.S. He was sanctioned by Canada and other European countries. So there's a huge block there. And remember, so that's one issue, right? How is that going to play out, and how is that going to play out in Parliament? And what is the U.S. reaction going to be? And I can tell you one thing: he did say that he's open to renegotiation of the oil contract. Now, that may be a problem, with the U.S. and with Exxon, which controls, has tremendous influence over our economy, right? The economy of Guyana. So that can pose an issue. So we can talk about, yes, it's a good thing, but we have some bridges to cross, and I don't know how that's going to play out. We don't know who he's going to bring in into Parliament, and we don't know what that relationship is going to be like. We hope it's going to be positive. But we can't forget the fact that, that sanction still hangs over his head, right? And that has to be a factor in this equation in terms of how things play out, I guess, in the next few months or years or whatever, right? So the U.S., we don't know where they're going to go with this and how that's going to shape up, right?
Folks, it's 7:58, 2 minutes before 8 o'clock, and you're listening to Globespan Television 24/7. Mr. Jonas, the voter turnout in Guyana this year has been the lowest. I'm seeing this says 64% on the screen. Some say the people are fed up with the political system. That's why they did not go out and vote. Others, they say they became disinterested. What are your views or your opinions on this? I think your mic is off.
The voter turnout was low. I don't like the statistic you use as a percentage, because a percentage is a percentage of the voters list. And the voters list, as we know, does not efficiently remove Guyanese who are deceased. So as a percentage, it's unreliable. But in terms of just sheer numbers, less people voted this go round than last go round. And I think that's a bit more accurate to look at it that way. The reason for that is simply that Aubrey Norton has not inspired any confidence in his strongholds. People have been leaving his party. He does not come across as someone who is welcoming and a people person. He is not personable, in stark contrast, for example, to President Irfan Ali. And people have been leaving. The supporters who were already disillusioned and annoyed that 5 years ago, not only did the APNU party lose, but they got caught in a very, very amateurish and belligerent attempt to rig the election. So his effort, if there was an effort to rebuild and reconstruct from that tattered affair that Granger left him in 5 years ago, we didn't see much of a reconstruction, much rebuilding happening. His choice of prime ministerial candidate was less than convincing. And I think that faced with that knowledge that this man is not going to win an election for us, I agree with what GHK Lal says. It wasn't that anyone was magnificently inspired by the Win Party and personnel in there. They left a lot to be desired. A lot of those characters you got to look at, in Askance. But that's all that was there as an alternative. There was no other viable alternative. The AFC was tainted with the rigging attempt. The other newcomers were not inspiring. And again, I think it is a credit to the Guyana voter that they were willing to cross the floor and go and vote for Nasruddin Mohammed, people who traditionally were voting APNU. I think it says a lot for them, and especially for the younger folk. And again, I don't think there was much difference in the PPP support base. I think in regions 3 and 6, they got exactly what they always got. And the reason for their success in 4 wasn't that more people voted for them. It was less people voted for APNU.
Thank you, Mr. Jonas. It's 8:02. Mr. Noor Singh, you want to jump in? Noor, I think you're muted.
Go. Here we go.
Go ahead.
Well, I want to echo what you started the program off with, extending our congratulations to His Excellency Dr. Irfan Ali and to the PPP government as a whole, and also to all the other political parties, be it WIN, AFC, APNU, and Forward Movement Guyana. And I also, to a larger extent, want to extend our congratulations to the people of Guyana for, participating in what probably was one of the less stressful and certainly a much more peaceful election in our history. So in saying that, and staying on the note of congratulation, I want to extend my congratulations as well to Dr. Beto-Ram. He used to be on Globespan before, hasn't been on a while with us. And I want to extend my congratulations for he is a winner of the Guyana Prize for Literature, Nonfiction this year, and was as well last year. And he also has a forthcoming book on the Wismar massacre. So congratulations, Dr. Beto-Ram, and thank you for joining us again on Globespan 24/7. Dr. Beto-Ram, I want to stay on this this sort of notion about the youths shifting towards more of an issue-based voting and moving away from party lines and race voting. If I could just go through the numbers with you a little and extract some of these numbers from reading Newsroom this afternoon. And what Newsroom pointed out was the voter turnout was 372,000. And of that, PPP won just over 200,000 votes, which pretty much put them in a very good position considering the turnout. But in comparison to 2020, the voting blocks for the PPP was 223,000. So compared 2020 to 2025, you have a negative of just about 10% or 23,000 votes. Dr. Beto-Ram, and I'm saying if you are a PPP supporter, and I'm not saying you are, or if it is that you're concerned of the political health of all political parties, what advice would you give the PPP in terms of the next 5 years that they're in government in addressing some of the issues that the nations are facing, particularly the young people? What advice would you give to them if it is that you're a PPP supporter and you want to see them re-elected in 2030?
Well, Noor, I don't think the PPP will take advice from me. Maybe they would take it from, from Jonas. But here, there are a couple of things that I can mention off the bat, right? I think if Cherry was here, I know we don't like to talk about Cherry, but the PPP, we claim that they are guided by Cherry's philosophy. So if he was here, I think he would say, look, we have a lot of wealthy people in Guyana, right? There's some big houses and so on. And if, as the World Bank is saying, that you have a large percentage of the population that are poor, right? Whether it's 50%, I know that number kind of fluctuate whether you're listening to Joel or the IMF or whoever it is. But the point is, there is a large percentage of Guyanese that don't see themselves as being part of the system. And I think you have to have an aggressive program, to address the needs of those people, because if you look at the population pyramid, more than half of the population are within that younger bracket. So that's something that has to be done to address that issue. In terms of, issue, can we make the argument that people were voting on the basis of issue in this election? Then maybe there is one issue that stands out. And this is the second, if you're asking me about advice. The second major issue is people will say, look, from the government side, well, you don't have any evidence to show that there's corruption. But what we do have is that there is a perception, that there is widespread corruption. And to his credit, Dr. Jagdeo said he or the PPP will form an anti-corruption unit to address that issue. And I hope that becomes something, that has some teeth that you could actually, in a sense, project and say, look, it's independent. Again, that's a hard sell. We know those things will take time and it has to be independent. That's the key word here. The other thing I would like to say, and this would be the third thing, is that, yes, we can make the argument that younger people are coming into the fore, they're playing a role, despite the fact that, we have a low voter turnout. But I would still continue, right? I would still continue with this whole notion of having a sort of a multicultural policy. We see something like that exists in places like Canada and so on. And I think when I say multicultural, I'm not talking necessarily about race, but I'm talking about, people who may be facing, gendered violence and minorities and disabled people and so on. So that sort of ethos and that culture has to be there. So when we're making decisions, whether you're a government or not, that thought has to be in your head that, look, we're not looking for a quota, but we're trying to make sure that we have this expansive, program to get everybody involved, to be part and parcel of that process, because, we're floating on oil money. So
Thank you.
There's no shortage of that.
Thank you, Dr. Beteram. Mr. GHK, put yourself in the shoes of a PPP supporter. You are or you're not. And let's shift post September 4th, 5th inauguration. PPP is in the fifth, the next term under Dr. Irfan Ali. Dr. Beteram mentioned that corruption may be one issue. And there again, keeping the backdrop, the negative of about 23,000 votes compared to 2020 and 2025. What issues would you want to advise the PPP to say these are the issues you need to focus on for the people? Because we want to see you get reelected. We want to see good governance. We like you. We want to support you. But here are the issues. Dr. Beteram mentioned corruption. Maybe is there something else that you would like to add to that?
Thank you. Gentlemen, before we go forward, here it is, we are 26 hours after our elections, general and regional elections, and we can talk with some authority, some conviction that these are the election results for 2025. That is astonishing, given our historical record. 26 hours later, and maybe it's less than that because we're at 8 o'clock and we are going from what happened a couple of hours before. So within a day, we are doing that. So I say to all the players in here, the government, congratulations, the PPP government, congratulations, Dr. Ali, Dr. Jagdir, the others, the APNU, you are where you are. Again, congratulations. And Mr. Wynn, hope you will make a significant contribution to this country. Now, I'm a PPP supporter and it's inauguration. Who wouldn't want to be a PPP supporter now? Well, here we are. I am. Let's nominate me. You got to do something, Mr. President, Dr. President. Please, I implore you, do something. And this segues off the corruption thing. Straighten out the police force. Give us a credible Guyana police force. Do something about that tender board. Revamp it. Put people in there that we can have confidence in them. Do something about that procurement commission. In other words, do not populate these things, these very, very sensitive bodies, with people who are trusted party loyalists. I'm being redundant here, but let's show that you are confident. You are confident in yourself, in that we will get people who are from either the opposition or civil society and have them participate. on this issue of corruption, I am appalled that, okay, so we don't have corruption. Then why are we having this bottleneck with access to information? Government information. The two are not reconciling here. We want to dig, I want to dig and see what is there to I can say, you know, you did well there. But could you explain to me what happened here? And so whatever the piece of information I'm going to ask for. So that police has to be looked at. I want to have confidence in the Ghana police force. We want to, the media must not be so skewed where the taxpayer dollars that I am paying that keeps the Guyana Chronicle. They have people in there who are slandering me from time to time, and I do not have recourse. I really don't want recourse. I don't want to get into that kind of match. But it really is improper for a government that talks about democracy the last 5 years, which is now
Yeah.
ancient history. We are
Yeah.
beginning the clock again. Start this thing over and start it right. And the way
Thank
you're
you.
going to do it right is not procedure. Excuse me, 1 minute. You're going to do it with people. You're going to do it
Yeah.
with the right people of integrity, or you ain't going nowhere. That's my
Okay.
recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. GHK. And Senior Counsel, a two-part question for you. One is that Dr. Beteram mentioned about the failures of minority governments in the past in Guyana. But yet, throughout the world, we are seeing such massive success in minority governments, be it Sweden, Norway, Canada, even our fatherland, India, is ruled by mainly minority governments. And your beautiful country, the United Kingdom, many times is ruled under minority government because there are checks and balances. And you mentioned that very extensively a few weeks ago in Globespan. So one, if you could just touch on that topic a little. And then the second part question I want you to comment on, and then of course I'll pass it back to Dr. Rose, is that the second part, we're keeping with the same theme that I started with Dr. Beteram and GHK. What advice? I mean, we want to have good governance. We want to have transparency. We want to have, government that are performing for the people. So out of those litany of items, which ones will you select to advise the PPP that these are the areas we would like to see them focus that will benefit the people of Guyana?
That's a mouthful, Nohar. First, let me correct you in my beautiful country. I'm in my beautiful country now. I was born here. I went to St. Margaret's and Queen's College and University of Guyana, and I've worked here all my life and never lived anywhere else. So let me correct you now.
Could take the man out of Guyana, but can't take the Guyana out of the man. Yes, love that, Jonas.
I smiled when my poor friend GHK Lal did the impossible and tried to pretend that he was a supporter, because the litany of complaints he then came up with so readily at the tip of his fingers gave light to that fiction immediately. But to answer your question, Nohar, people keep saying, oh, the minority government wouldn't work. Of course, it's academic now. PPP will either have 34, 35, or 36 seats, depending on how the final count is. But here's the thing that I want people to think about. Human nature is that the bully, the powerful win. It's been that way since we were cavemen. The strongest wins, the weakest loses. And the measure of civilization is that you stop that. So the bully in the schoolyard who could kick you behind and therefore is king in the schoolyard. The teacher is there to protect the weak. Your parents are there to protect. In any civilized society, the system must be that the strong are limited from excesses by the rules. So they're limited from abusing their strength. You cannot have a government that has no limits on its strength and therefore can abuse the minorities who are the weak in the society. So when you take it to a national level, if you have two groups, one strong and one weak, the laws must be designed and the system must be geared to protect the weak. If you are in government, you're strong, And if there are no restraints on your strength, you will have corruption and abuse of your power and oppression of the minority. The only way to protect the weak is to put systems in there that give the weak a voice, that give them a place in the decision making. So for those folk, and I heard Bertram say just now, who say, man, you allow the opposition that and they will obstruct. It's possible they may obstruct. But what I ask every loyalist to do, every Guyanese who's on one side or the other, is to put yourself in the position, if you're a PPP supporter, put yourself in the position that PNC is in government. Would you prefer the PNC to be in government with 34 seats so that your lovely PPP government is in a minority and has no say in parliament? Or would you prefer the PNC to be in government as a minority so that their excesses can be restrained by a majority opposition in parliament? So put yourself in the position that you are the weak one. And if you can do that objectively and think about it intelligently, rationally, without getting into the vitriol, it is obvious, it is clear to any thinking person that if the rules are there to protect the weak in a national system, the parliamentary system must enable the weak, the opposition, the people who are not in government, to be part of the process. If they are excluded, then the people who are strong, because it's human nature, will abuse their strength. And you will see corruption, you will see land grabs, you will see unfair contracts, you will see favoritism, you will see oppression. So those are your options. And I have, for the last 5 years, heard people in reasonable, polite, educated tones say, man, we know there's corruption, we know there's problems, but if we allow a majority opposition, progress will be obstructed. But you never heard in the last 5 years a PNC supporter say.
But the thing is, I mean, the examples that Nohar gave earlier, these are countries that have a certain kind of political culture. They've been around for a long time,
So I see
right?
wind
You
of
know,
change is coming. The only thing is,
somebody's speaking
have to
over me. I
ensure
don't
that
know.
I think you got something going on there.
favorably,
You're not muted.
Dr. Rose?
everybody. And
Sorry. Go
Yeah, the
ahead.
point I was trying to make is that those examples, point to European countries where the culture allows those things. Yes, the key has to be institutions. But here's the dilemma that you're faced with. If you're telling people we need to have a minority government before the election, and I'm going to cast my vote, okay, I shouldn't give it to APNU or PPP. So who do I give it to? And how do I know when that threshold is there so that one party doesn't have that majority vote? Where do I draw the line? That information as a voter, as a rational voter, I don't have that information, and I can't take that chance. If I'm going to cast my vote, I'm not taking that chance. Yes, the institutions has to be there. I agree with that. It is a moot point now because you compete in an election, right? And we have to respect the results of the election. One party wins, the other party loses. So then let's work on creating those institutions that we need to have, right? And there are ways
I'm sorry
we
to
can do
interrupt
that.
you, Bertram, but how? Please tell me, sitting there, when the government has 34 seats, how do you work on improving those institutions? What do you do? Step by step. Help me out, because I'm lost.
But to come back to what you're saying, if we are going to have a system where you're going to create a minority government, you're saying I want to play outside of the rules of the game. Why go into an election then if that's the game plan that you have? Because you're saying, look, I'm going to vote, so I'm hoping that this government is not going to get the majority. So therefore, the party that I'm voting for is going to put them in check. We don't have that information to make that decision when we cast the vote. So the problem is that's one dilemma that you're faced with. But the second thing is you're going into an election knowing what the rules of the games are. So the point is don't go into that election, boycott the election if that's the game plan that you have, because you have to deal with the results as they come out. Okay, you didn't get the minority government that you want. So therefore, you have to play within the rules, within Parliament. You can go to the streets, you can have demonstrations, you can have, you can organize and get people out, right? You have a second political party now in the opposition. So you have to come up with mechanisms to deal with that. But you can't say we're going to create a minority government. And the fact remains that a minority government, we're not even looking at the other side of the coin. A minority government also has its implications because they can create gridlock. So that has to be factored into that equation, because it doesn't necessarily mean because you have a minority government, you may end up having what you have with Sharon Das. You're going to have an election, a deadlock, right? And then you have a new election in 3 months and you go back to square one, right? So I think the way to deal with that is to put pressure on the government in Parliament, right? You get other countries involved, third parties. We have neighbors, CARICOM neighbors. You have to keep that pressure. You can take to the streets, you can protest, right? You can keep doing that, but you can't. How do you fix that if you don't have, right? If you don't have that minority government in place, what do you do? How do you deal with that then? What is the option within a democracy to change the rules of the game if you can't do that during an electoral process?
Yeah.
Well, as I said, it's academic now because, as you say, the elections have had their result, and it was a fair election with a fair result. But if your solution, given the result, is bringing third-party countries and protests in the street in order to give pressure, which are the two examples you gave, first of all, I don't think you'll get much traction with that. But second of all, I don't think you'll get support with it.
Yeah. But then the other option is, what do? You have an election, this is what you have. How do you deal with that?
Yeah.
You have to find a way to convince people in government to make that change.
Yeah. Yeah. And Dr. Bitram, if it's okay with you, we'll move on. It is a mute point. I think most of it was circled around the fact that in absence of constitution reform, how could we be able to have an accountability and transparent government from whichever government is in for the day? I think we offended justice for Adriana Young. He posted, "Why is Globespan?" And of course, he used some very colorful language congratulating the PPP for winning the election. So justice for Adriana Young, the only reason we're doing that is not because it's official. It's really, and indications are that the PPP will win. And we thought that, just trying to be cordial in that manner. So didn't mean to go ahead of GCOM in any manner. Before I pass it over to Dr. Rose, Tim, any top priority list that you would want to point out to the PPP wants to take government?
Even the staunchest thinking PPP supporter knows that the corruption is increasing. It's bad and it's increasing. Now, here's the thing, Nohar. The amount of groundwork that the PPP have done in putting down infrastructure, you might quarrel about quality of infrastructure, you might quarrel about kickbacks and bribes and all of that, that's there. But we have seen rapid transformation of our infrastructure. It could be done better, it could be better planned, the quality could be better, all of those things, great. I think that needs to be built on. And I would recommend to that party, if I were a supporter, if I were saying, you're my party and I am supporting you and this is what I want to see, that the large master plan for Guyana for the next 10 years be presented on social media, on television, given to the opposition. So we see what our road networks will look like. If we're thinking rail versus road for transportation. As you know, in the US, they prefer roads. The 18-wheel trucks are a core part of moving commodities. Is that how we're going to go? Or do we go back to the rail? How do we fix our transportation congestion issues? We've got a lot of rivers and we've got a lot of people in the interior. What is the master plan? Put it out. Show what the budget is, how we intend to fix the problems we have. Let people talk about it and then let people see as it is happening. And have opposition appointed people on your boards and commissions. It's not going to happen nowhere. There was a brief lull, a brief renaissance immediately after the 2020 elections when the PPP reached out and put some small party folks on the boards, GRDB and Guy Oil and all of that. It was short-lived. It's not going to happen, but that would be my strong suggestion. Put the people you don't like on these boards so they could see what you're doing. Keep your majority. I can't tell you, don't give yourself a majority. Show the master plan for the country, and then let's see it implemented over the next 5 years in a way that everybody's seeing it work and everybody can participate and feel invested in it. And that is how we'll do it.
Absolutely. And moving the country into a first world country, I would like to add to that cost of living on the people. I mean, it should be a priority. And of course, we need to look towards a higher standard of living that includes morality and ethical levels. So, and particularly ethical level in how we behave in the public sector and including government and also in the public arena. Dr. Rose, please, you could take over.
Thank you. The time now is 8:27, and folks, you're listening to Globespan 24/7 TV. Now, I just want to make a comment here. The local government elections, the national turnout was 36.5 or 36.6%. But in Region 6, which is the quarantine, had a turnout of 29%. In this election, the turnout seems to be in the 60s, and Region 6 now stands at 54.7%. There got to be a reason why Region 6 rather turnout, Region 6 turnout is so low. Now, Mr. Jonas, I have a question for you here, Senior Counsel. GCOM list of voters was registered at 757,000 out of a population of 798,000. But to date, 377,000 persons have voted. What is the reason that we cannot get rid of this bloated list, Mr. Jonas?
The reason that we can't get the dead folk off the list?
Yeah, and get an exact list of what numbers we have of people registered to vote.
You know, Euclid, for me, it's one of the problems that could potentially be so minor, so minuscule that it's not even worth talking about. And you don't reinvent the wheel. Our problem is that when you're born, you go on the list. And because most Guyanese migrate and die abroad, there is no system that similarly, when you die, your death is registered in Guyana and therefore communicated to GCOM when you come off the list. Because when you die abroad, there's no death certificate, there's no processing it through the local post office. GCOM never knows. So as a matter of necessity, it's inevitable. GCOM is not informed when somebody dies because they migrated and they died abroad, and therefore their name remains there. It's such an easy problem. Let me give you some examples. Everybody has to pay taxes, pay NIS, collect from NIS, collect government pension, buy land, sell land, renew their driver's license. If anybody does not transact any of those things for a period of 7 years, which is a little more than one election cycle, you deem them dead and take them off the list. Simple. So if they're alive, they turn up before elections, they say, here I am, you put them back on the list. But you can change the law to deem them dead and take them off the list if nothing happens, no transaction happens for 7 years. Alternatively, if they do not vote for 2 election cycles. So when you check your records, GCOM checks your records, and Tim Jonas has not voted for 2 election cycles, take him off the list. So next election, he can come, he can turn up and say, here I am, I want to vote, you put me back on the list. But that will clean up the list in terms of a deceased person by the second election, he gone off the list, and your list is clean. So the problem is so easily resolved that GCOM should be embarrassed. But the reason to answer your question that there are names on the list of people who are deceased is that in an ordinary, average society, you're born in Guyana, the nurse gets your birth certificate, sends the record to the post office, GCOM collects that, and you go on the list. And similarly, when you die, the doctor certifies your death, it goes to the post office, and GCOM says, this person has died, take them off the list. But if half the country is migrating so that they die abroad, That second half of the process never happens. And therefore, the system to remove deceased persons from the list is compromised. So it's not sinister, it's not unusual, it's not unexpected, and the solution is simple.
Thank you, Mr. Jonas. I have a question from one of our listeners, and they asked me to ask you this question. It says that corruption remains a major problem in Guyana, and it's prevalent in almost all state agencies, but more so in the police force. The government plans to establish an anti-corruption agency. Do you think, according to this listener, that will wipe out corruption or lower the rate of corruption or the level of corruption? The listener asking you to ask you this question.
No, it won't.
And Dr. Rose, maybe we could give Mr. GHK a chance as well to answer that.
Yeah, I will.
No, please, I'm happy to defer to GHK.
Okay, Mr. Lal, do you want to answer this question? You're muted.
Let's be courteous to your Mr. Jonas first, please.
Okay.
GHK courtesy is not a Guyanese thing, man. But
Well,
anyway,
I know but it. I know but it.
I'll go with it. To answer your question, the reason that there is corruption is that the systems don't work. If citizens knew what their rights were, they would not tolerate abuse by police. If police were paid well and were proud of their uniforms, they would be less likely to risk losing their jobs because their jobs would be more desirable. The governments throughout the history of Guyana, when faced with corruption or faced with systemic issues, have always said, man, we'll appoint a board, we'll create this commission, we'll do this, we'll do that. Doesn't work. You have to go to the core reason for a problem. And in the Guyana police force, if you pay somebody $100,000, $120,000 a month, and they could make $1 million a month on the traffic beat, you have a problem. If it is known that you can make $1 million, and inside of the force it is, so you wink, you turn your eye from it, you have a problem. If you're not afraid of losing your job, and if the job pays so poorly that you do not get the people of quality that you need, for example, and I've said this in another forum, in Canada, to be a policeman, you need to have a degree. And after you get your degree, you got to go and do police training at the police academy. The best and the brightest become police. And when you're a policeman, you are in a social position of respect. That's how it should be. So to say we're going to appoint some group of people to police the police without looking at the underlying reasons that why they do not have dignity in their job, it doesn't solve the problem.
Mr. Lal?
And the question is, sir?
The question is that it came from one of our, why is it that corruption is prevalent in Guyana, especially in state agencies and corporations, especially the police force? And the government plans to establish an anti-corruption agency. Do you think that will wipe out or lower the level of corruption in the country?
Well, both questions, thank you. Both questions go to the same thing. And I've said it on this program, and I've said it in a number of places. We can have commissions and committees and boards and whatever. We can have policies and procedures. We can have key operating principles and guiding principles. And those are wonderful. And they will only come alive, they will only work contingent upon the quality of the individuals that are responsible for them when they are operationalized. So even if it's the police force, we go to the police force as one example. Look at, with due respect to the good cops in there, good officers, good ranks, men and women. Look at what is happening to that national institution that means so much to each one of us who live here, to you gentlemen who live over there, the reputation of this country. Now, I hear this business about an anti-fraud, anti-corruption squad. In theory, it's a wonderful thing. But if you're going to put that with somebody like me, and if I'm corrupt and I'm on the take, and you have it people by mainly like me with that kind of mentality, we are not doing anything about corruption. So again, it goes back to what I said earlier, and I think Mr. Jonas also mentioned it. If we get people who do not agree with us, people who we hope are independent, people who we hope not only are independent, but will do the right thing and represent the government in an anti-corruption capacity or on a board that has to do with whatever it is, procurement, good governance, etc., etc., then we will make some progress, however minimal. But if we are going along in this thing and talk about corruption, 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 okay, where is it? It is with those people that you've got there, and we know who they are. And that is why we get what we get out of those entities, whatever they are. So now if the answer to that is we're going to root this thing out, we were talking that it didn't exist, so it was 5%, and we're going to root this thing out now. I'm all ears, and I'm sure that we are all ears. Here's the thing. Who is going to be a part of this anti-corruption squad? If it's going to be a set of corrupt people or party hacks, excuse me, we're digging a bigger hole for ourselves. We are repeating the last 5 years in the next 5 years. And I think the government will do very, very well if it says, look, we are going to clean house here. We're going to start a new day, and we are going to do it this way. And I think first thing you got to do, admit there's a problem. Don't do it to please the opposition or civil society critics. There is a problem, and it is a severe problem, and we are concerned about that. And this is what we are going to do. And we expect this unit, this squad, whatever it is, to deliver. End of story. Thank you.
Thank you, G.H. Lal. I have a question for you, Dr. Rambach. State agencies, should they be staffed based on the proportion of the population? For example, and this is state agencies and corporations. For example, there are 40% Indo-Guyanese, 29% Afro-Guyanese, 11% Amerindians. Should state agencies reflect those people on their boards? Dr. Betaram?
You know, what we have been saying for years, right? Not just us, but there have been a number of recommendations from commissions of inquiry and so on. And I know we keep talking about the police, that those institutions should reflect, and again, this goes back to something that the PPP has been calling for way back in the 60s. It should reflect the population. You know, in Trinidad, here's an interesting thing, and I'll give you this example. Where Eric William, you know, had a police force which was predominantly Africans in the 1970s. And so when you had the Black Power movement, the threat came from those people, some of them who he had put in place. So he decided to kind of create a balance. And the idea for creating that balance is to have one person looking at the other. You know, Timothy, like to say, if you have people of different background and so on, everybody looking at each other, that's the way to go. So the answer is yes. I do think that you should have boards, institutions that reflect a diversity of people. Diversity, in a sense, would include people in the opposing side, not just the people, you know, who pledge loyalty to you, because that is part of the Guyanese culture where you're putting people in place, whether it's an ambassador or a person on the board, because, you know, they have been loyal to you. And I think that's a tradition that we have to break out from. And I think because it is part of the culture, it also has to come from the top. And I think this is where I think President Irfan Ali has a chance to really do some good things in the next 5 years that he's there, to break that tradition and really be that transformational leader, that people keep talking about in reference to him. So you invite people. Yes, it should reflect, policing should reflect the community, because people who live, I mean, it's a big thing out in the United States, right? If you have police officers who live in the community, right, who work with the people in that community, it means they will be able to address conflicts in a much more conducive manner to prevent greater conflict. Yes, it should reflect a diversity of people. And I come back to this point that I made earlier about this whole notion of having a multicultural policy about doing things. That is something that should be a policy. And again, I'm not talking about quota system, right? I'm talking about an idea that you should try to reflect the diversity of all Guyanese in every institutions of power. And again, the important thing, and I'm going to end here, is you do want to bring in people from the outside, right? From the other side. Because, I mean, it's a small country, small population, and you want the best and the brightest, not just the people who are loyal to you.
Thank you, Dr. Rambarak. Time is flying very, very fast. It's 8:42.
Dr. Rose, could I interrupt, please? Could I say something on that for one moment?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I agree to a point with the reflection of the diversity of a country, but there's a danger there. The danger is we will reflect the diversity, but we could end up with tokenism. We have some people who look like that part of the demographic, and they couldn't push a wheelbarrow when we need them to be a nuclear physicist. So my thing is, and I heard you say that, Dr. Rambarak, when you in your last sentence, we need the best. You said the best and the bright. We need the best fit for this job. And when we say the best fit, not something that has been fixed, but a real the best fit for this job. If it's you, it's you. If it's me, regardless of my political persuasion, of my criticism, or whatever. And that's it. Thank you for the courtesy.
Yeah, that's my point. Diversity and the best and the brightest. If you have that combination, it's a great combination to have.
Great. Senior Counsel, Mr. Jonas, you are on the Constitutional Reform Committee, am I right? Mr. Jonas?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Is there a time frame for completion? 1. 2, is there an agreement between you and the government and the parties that whatever recommendations you all make, it will be implemented, barring some minor compromises? Or if you all make recommendations, it will be rejected like what the Granger administration did, I think the Nigel used. And so it's an exercise in futility. Is there such an agreement?
No. To answer your question shortly, Starbuck News, I'm afraid, the English language is such an inefficient medium of communication. You get things wrong unintentionally. Starbuck News published the other day that we had stopped working, and that's not what I had said to them when they called me for a comment. We had suspended our meetings until after elections for obvious reasons. So many of the members there are political and were campaigning and that kind of thing, and all of that. So we had briefly stopped our meetings. We should be starting back soon. We haven't done enough, but to change the Constitution, you need 2/3 majority. And the pretended intention, the stated intention of this commission is to put a group of people who should know what they're doing together to get the views of the public and therefore to decide what are the best areas of reform. Quite frankly, I think it's cumbersome and unwieldy and unnecessarily so. I think that the people who have argued constitutional matters and who have practiced in office appointed under the Constitution know the good and the bad. The whole of Guyana knows about the problems with the Chancellor and the Chief Justice. So the procedure that they're adopting, I think, is too cumbersome. But one voice on a panel of 10 people, you might as well be minority in parliament. Yeah, you don't get to control what happens. So hopefully we will get a result that is satisfactory. But if we get a result that is satisfactory and can lay before Parliament a list of suggestions, there is definitely no guarantee that 2/3 of the people in Parliament will vote to support those suggestions. I'll give you one that I think about. We failed with the appointment of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice. And for me, I would remit that responsibility to the existing body of judiciary. Let the judges choose from among their number or from candidates who meet specified qualifications, who they want. So let's preserve the independence of the judiciary that way. I don't think there's a politician in the country that would agree with that, but I think that's the way to go. So, you know, you can't guarantee that people will agree with your point of view, but you have to make a suggestion.
Thank you. Mr. G.H.K. Lal, since 1992, the Carter Center with other groups created what we call GCOM, with 6 commissioners, 3 from each of the 2 political parties, which is a recipe for gridlock. Do you think there have been no reforms made in GCOM since then? And this means that we're looking at 25 and 8, 33 years. Do you think we should reform GCOM and set the commissioners? Because when there's a gridlock, 3 vote against the commissioner, the chairperson has to vote to break that deadlock. And that's put the chairperson on the spot. Some will say if the commissioners of the PPP voted and she voted with them, she's the PPP, and vice versa. Do you think it should be changed to reflect what the courts have as judges, odd numbers, 7, 9, 11, 13, etc., so there can be no gridlock? And should there be not only members of the opposition or from the government, but clergymen, trade unions, etc., etc.? Do you think?
You know, let me tell you what I think. We started this program on a very optimistic note, everybody here. You know, unofficial numbers, correct me if I'm wrong, unofficial numbers, but it's more or less there, right? It's more or less there. And nobody's objecting, the opposition parties. I'm taking it for what it is, and we've said our congratulations, all of us. Here's the story. When the deadlock as it stands right now, 3 versus 3, is almost automatic, which makes the chair, the GCOM, the chair is GCOM. That person is GCOM at that moment, whatever the issue is. No, we got to scrap that thing. And I've been saying this. You have a new dispensation, if that's appropriate. Maybe they'll be more open. They'll be more open to working together. The rancor of 2020 and 19 months and 5 months after May 2nd and all the back and forth and recount, that's not there now. That's a major plus. So we are starting off with a lot of goodwill, I think. So that goodwill, I think, could say, you know, we went into this thing with GCOM being where it is. There's so many things to fix, but let's deal with this, which means so much to our people, which means so much to a credible selection process for a credible government. No. 3 from the government and 3 from the opposition, you're asking for trouble. Gentlemen in this panel and folks listening here, watching, you're asking for trouble in the context of Guyana. And for us, and to keep that and believe that we're going to have this magical development within the next year. No. Let us come to this thing on a practical basis as reasonable men and women and say, it's got to be something different. You're going to have civil societies presences. You're going to have the government people, you have the opposition people, but you must also have other faces and voices in that commission. And I think to get the best result, this is my thinking, you're going to have, shall we say, and it got to be this quote unquote business, non-political person. The fact that I disagree with the government, that makes me political. The fact that you may disagree with the opposition, that makes you political. So where are you going to find this mythical beast from? But we still got to give it a good try, like we're doing with the Constitutional Reform Commission, and come up with a different formula and structure, or else we are going to perpetuate the gridlock that we have right now. Different people with government opposition, and we have other people involved there that say, this is what our trade unions, for example, the church, let's take those two bodies there and say we're going to have one from you and one. The government still has the majority. And the chair is also a civil society person, preferably somebody with a retired judge or something like that. That's the way I see this.
Let me ask this before bringing Mr. Noir Singh. Now, Mr. Timothy Jonas, I want to ask you this question. Desiree Bernard, who was my cousin, she died. She was the last substantive chancellor. Now, we have the Chief Justice acting and the Chancellor acting for the past, 8, 9 years. Why you think it is so difficult to make these people substantive Chief Justice and substantive Chancellor, Mr. Jonas? Why this has been a problem over the years?
Control. Every politician in Guyana, from Burnham coming forward, has wanted the comfort of knowing that he has some form of control over the judiciary. Luckily for us, the members of the judiciary, for the most part, have refrained from too much political control and have maintained a certain degree of autonomy. But neither side is willing to risk substantively appointing judicial personnel that they feel can possibly not only not be controlled by them, but possibly can be sympathetic to the other side. That's why the Judicial Service Commission, as a constitutional body, is skewed to allow the government a majority on that body in the appointment of judges. It is why we have not been able to appoint a chancellor or judiciary, although a chancellor or a chief justice, although we've had people who are eminently qualified. And it's why I will repeat that the decision has got to be taken away from the politicians and placed entirely in the hands of the judges, let them appoint their own.
Thank you, Mr. Noor Singh.
Well, I just wanted to express our gratitude to our viewers tonight. I think our numbers went up closer to 1,800 combined. And I want to stress to our viewers that Globespan is really trying to do something very different. If you notice, we don't have all the bells and whistles. We don't have those colorful languages that, many of the other social media platform have. But what we try to do is to have a diverse conversation. It's really important for our growth as a nation to have different opinions, being able to agree to disagree, and to be able to contribute towards the development of the people of Guyana. And that's our main focus, really. It's not to develop the individual person, but rather the people as a whole. And I know criticism has been has not been a part of our narrative. Many of us don't accept that very well, but I could tell you that criticism does help us to grow. It does help us to reshape ourselves, and it certainly helps us to go to a higher level, particularly in the instance when we don't agree with those criticisms, rather than going into the confrontational mode, rather than saying, oh, is they anti-PPP or anti-APNU, anti-this. We try to go to a higher level and rise way above that. So I really want to, plead and to express our intention is from Globespan. We have been inviting many other political parties. We invite the PPP to come on, APNU to come on. We try to invite everyone so that they could have a voice on this platform. So I want to thank all of you for being with us. I know we're coming close to program time. So Dr. Rose, if you want to ask everyone for their closing comments, and we could, bring it to a head.
Simply put, we are a fair and balanced network, Globespan 24/7. Dr. Beteram, I will go with you first for your closing comments.
But I do want to agree, on this positive note with my colleagues that it is about control. Yes, we need to have. And I remember when we talk about GCOM, both Vincent Alexander and Mr. Ben both agreed on the same show that GCOM was dysfunctional. So I hope we can see some change in there. So we have technical people involved, not just people connected to a political party, and also the fact that you want to bring in, as I said, people. This is a great opportunity for President Farnali to bring in people who could make a difference. We talk about the best and the brightest, right? And getting people from the other side. So I will end by saying, congratulations again to the to all the parties that participated, the PPP for winning and coming in at number one. Win obviously is a congratulations to them, and I hope the PNC APNO can regroup and hopefully within the next 5 years become a credible opposition, because we do need a strong opposition to move the country forward. We need it all hands on deck, so to speak. Thank you.
Mr. G.H. Lal, your closing comments?
Again, it's very, very good to be here on a Tuesday evening, one day after election, and not have flashbacks to 5 years ago. It may look to be administrative, and we talk all of the buzzwords about credible and transparent and free and fair, wonderful. But again, it takes people and will to make that happen. And it happened. And we show that we can make things happen. We can do things. And I think it sets the stage for us to go to the next level, to try some other things. Leadership is about risk. There is always an element of risk in there. Everybody around this table here knows. So I say it to everybody here and to my fellow Guyanese, it's been a pleasure being here tonight. And I think I leave here that we can look at tomorrow through different lens. Thank you all.
Mr. Jonas?
I hear my friend Beteram still harping on this strong and vibrant opposition, but his response to how an opposition with less than 32 seats can have any effect whatsoever, his responses are unconvincing. So let me say that for me, my takeaway from this, the positive I take from this, is that for the first time in Guyana, the political landscape is not marred by two ethnic-based parties, each of which represents one of the two large ethnic groupings in Guyana. For the first time in Guyana, there are three almost equally balanced, certainly formidable and hopefully permanent parties that cannot be identified simply by ethnicity, because two of them are virtually identical. And my hope is that that will help the erosion of the ethnic identity of the parties. Because if I cannot say to you, well, don't split the vote, we have to stick together, let's vote for PNC, let's vote for PPP, then I am forced to start talking about policies, about competence, about removal of corruption, about what we've accomplished, about prudent fiscal management of the free oil money. I have to start talking about quality rather than ethnicity. And for the first time, I think we may be seeing that on the horizon. And that is my takeaway from having three parties in our political landscape for the first time.
Thank you. Again, we want to thank all the political parties for participation in this election, which was very, very smooth. We also want to thank Globespan, GCOM and the citizens of Guyana for their generosity and their kindness in this election. And I want to also say on behalf of the staff and management of Globespan 24/7 television, I extend our sincere congratulations to His Excellency President Dr. Irfaan Ali for winning the election, and it is our fervent hope that he will continue to govern in the best interest of all Guyanese. Globespan 24/7 has been a fair and balanced network, owned and operated by Mr. Noir Singh and our two technical directors, Devin Bissoon and Ryan Gobin. And tonight, once again, thanks to all our listeners for tuning in, and a special thanks to our sponsors, who without them, we cannot continue this program. So once again, thanks to everyone, and good night to everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
It was a pleasure. Good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Good night.